If you've been around the bend for a while, you might have heard about the so-called women are wonderful effect. In short, it's a psychological phenomenon that's been observed repeatedly in experiments and elsewhere, just through observation, daily observation. And it tells us that, in general, when women do things, there typically is a far greater positive association that is connected with those things. And so, in general, when women do things, they just are viewed as being better. Not that they're necessarily better at it, but that them doing it is just a good thing, and that positive feelings and positivity are associated with this. And this is something that you can observe anecdotally in your own life, in addition to having been studied. But what I find really interesting is that recently I came across a post under a video where they were talking about the so-called birth replacement crisis. Now, women have been deceived into going to university, not marrying, having children early enough, and so on and so forth. And I stumbled across this comment, which you can see in the video, and I thought it was a perfect attestation, personification of the women are wonderful effect, because it really tells us all we need to know. And we've known for years that when women get educated, it's amazing. Women are amazing because they are educated. When women hit a tennis ball, it's amazing. Women are amazing. When women do anything, it's pretty amazing. And the very basic ability of women to give birth is, of course, regarded as amazing. We've heard this all the time. By extension, being a mother is the quote-unquote toughest or hardest job in the world. We've all heard this many, many times. Now, in general, when we think of achievement, we typically associate achievement with work and effort. We do not, for example, call eating a meal an achievement. And by extension, we don't typically refer to copulation or reproduction as an achievement. Now, of course, given human emotions and proclivities, a lot of people say congratulations when people have successfully copulated to reproduce. And that's a convention I've never quite understood, although I can understand in theory the sense of it. But this here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That if there's a problem, it's not enough to simply tell women that maybe they need to address this problem, maybe something needs to be done about it. I'm not even arguing necessarily that women need to have 20,000 children like a lot of conservatives might. I am pretty neutral on this. I don't know if we actually have a population crisis or not. That's my take. I just don't know. But the only way you can encourage, it seems, women, by light of comments like this, is by effectively telling them they're amazing. That having sex and giving birth is the greatest, and I do mean greatest, human achievement that could ever be and ever exist. There's nothing greater than that in all of human existence. Not the erection of skyscrapers, not open heart surgery, not functional flight. It is having sex and giving birth. And to this, the gentleman, if I recall, responded that having sex and giving birth is the prerequisite for all of that. To which I responded, breathing and taking dumps is the prerequisite to having sex and giving birth. It's a never-ending cycle, obviously. But in general, we do not regard these basic functions of human life or animal life as achievements. But that is what it seems to take to gin up a certain degree of encouragement so women will actually take to something. It's not enough to say, let's say I take the more conservative view here and there's a serious problem with below replacement populations, yada, yada, yada. It's not enough to simply say, well, there's a serious problem because women aren't having enough children and they're waiting too long, blah, blah, blah. And in order to encourage them, it's not enough to say, look, this is an issue. Maybe we should start addressing it. You have to say, it is just amazing what you do. You had sex and you had a kid. That's amazing. Now, I understand how someone could think of that in an almost spiritual way, perhaps. I can't relate to it, but I can understand that. But you see this across the board. The women are wonderful effect. Whatever they do, be it having sex, be it giving birth, be it getting education, be it driving a car, whatever it is, it's just amazing. And why is it amazing? Because women do it. And so, regardless of what the issue is, be it childbirth or the alleged below replacement issue, I say alleged because I'm just not sure, by the way, or education, whatever it is, I think in general we need to at least attempt to come up with a new approach to encouraging human beings and women, because it's always been this way, right? If you're a guy, you're just expected to do stuff. No one's going to pat you on the back for getting up to go to work. No one's going to pat you on the back for illustrating something, for achieving anything. No one's going to say, oh, it's really amazing that you got a PhD in electrical engineering. No, you're a guy. You just did it. A woman has a PhD in electrical engineering. Amazing. She has a vagina. Wow. It is amazing. Magic. That attitude of extreme encouragement towards women and little to no encouragement for men is part of the reason, not entirely, but a big part of the reason why we are currently stuck in the pickle that we are in. Because, be it in the educational system, in particular in the educational system, where male means of learning and going about acquiring knowledge are actively suppressed and not encouraged, and the opposite, the highly feminized female way of approaching things, is encouraged, as if even more encouragement were needed to further bolster and booster the so-called women are wonderful effect. And I'm not sure long-term what's going to happen, but I do think it could come to the point where you could get a significant chunk of our society, of males specifically, who decide to drop out. And yes, many people won't care. But there could be the distinct possibility of sufficient numbers of men dropping out such that tax revenue drops, such that they're just not willing to do the things because they don't see themselves getting anything out of it that they're traditionally expected to do. It's not enough to say these days, just do it. Just do it because you have to. For what recognition? For what reward? For what encouragement? This is an ongoing problem, but I see it escalating further and further as time passes. A further bolstering of this is, of course, the evidence that women have an in-group preference for their own sex, and men have an out-group preference for the opposite sex. Of course, that makes sense. Women are rarely in direct competition with each other in the same way or manner that men are, because men have to compete against each other for resources and consequently have to compete against each other for mates, whereas women can do that. There is a such thing as intrasexual competition, but it's not based upon the same rules of male dominance or competition hierarchies, and thus women are much more likely to cooperate with each other because they tend to act and see themselves as a collective, with their interests being collectively represented. These interests might differ slightly at the level of individuals, on the one hand, but it's rarely going to lead to a dearth of male partners that they won't have access to. Whereas if men were to cooperate in the way women did, then who knows what would happen. But I think there would be even more asymmetries between men and access to sex and reproduction than there already are. So although I'm of the view that we need to somehow change how we encourage individuals, specifically create a more balanced way of encouraging both men and women without the ridiculous hyperbole attributed to women and the non-existent encouragement when it comes to men, I think that, as I usually do, this is probably a futile task. I don't see the women is wonderful effect changing or going away anytime soon. And it seems to be the case that you need to praise women to the heavens for them to do anything that would be required as a baseline for men. And even then, they often don't do it. And I'm sure you in the audience could probably draw upon examples you've observed in your own life as well. It's very, very telling. You don't need to read the studies, although I would encourage you to do so, but you can observe this. It's everywhere. Women are simply amazing, are they not? As always, thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, the usual YouTube business. And if I'm still alive, I will check you out later. May the gods watch over you. Take care. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.